Hello everyone, and welcome again to the art studio of Eli Hansen. It's a lovely day this morning, and I thought, why not come inside and do an art video for the rest of you to enjoy. Today I'm here to share a few more tips that I've used to improve my pencil drawing skills. And the first tip I'm going to talk about is quality of line. My art teacher, Diana Hankey, deserves full credit for this. She's the one who taught me pretty much everything I know. Quality of line is, well, all of the qualities that make up your line. It's rocket science, I know, but stick with me. You can have a line that's very thin and very light. That's two qualities right there. You can have a line that's very thin and very dark. It's easier to do with a mechanical pencil. You can have a line that's very thick and very dark. You can have lines that are very smooth and lines that are very jagged and seemingly random. And each of these lines will simulate another type of surface or texture, another type of lighting, another type of emphasis, and they will draw your eye to the painting or drawing in different ways. For instance, a very smooth line, you can see many uses for that in drawing still lifes, especially fruit, especially things found in nature are very often very curved lines. But here's another example, jagged line. That was what I would use for a rock face behind something, or that something would be standing on. Something that it's very simple to do just by trembling your hands slightly as you draw your line, but it makes a very complex shape for you to shade and add to later to simulate the unevenness and roughness of a rocky or uneven surface or texture. It's simpler to describe these other lines, the thin, thick, dark, light lines. Those are used purely for emphasis in my drawings. If I'm drawing the curve of an apple or a tomato, and I want to emphasize a part of it, maybe I want to emphasize right before it hits the ground, right before it touches the ground or what seems to be the ground to the viewer. Maybe I want to emphasize an area where there's a highlight. The rest of it may be shaded in. But the area where there's a highlight, if I didn't put that darker line there, you might not notice. If I put that highlight here where the line is lighter, the apple, the tomato, whatever fruit we are drawing will seem to just fade away. But by putting this dark line here, I define the edge of the apple or the tomato without still leaving the white space for the highlight. I'll try not to get too drawn up in this drawing, but it has been a while since I did a still life like this, and it's always fun to go back and review these things. Anyway, quality of line is a concept that is very important to make your drawings clear to the viewer what it is you're intending to display. If you put your emphasis in the wrong places, you will really slow down the viewer. If you put your emphasis in the right place, the viewer will realize, oh, this is an apple. Oh, this is a castle. Oh, this is a leaf. And they can begin admiring the details of the thing that you've drawn. If you put your emphasis in the wrong places, or if you make your emphasis all the same, if I went around and darkened the border of this entire apple, the viewer would have to think longer to figure out what you're trying to display. So you want to use emphasis correctly. You want to use it so that the viewer sees what you want them to see, and so that your drawing is still realistic and believable. Basically, anything you make darker, the viewer will probably look at first. It will stand out more. So you can use that to your advantage, but you don't want to overuse it. You don't want to use it inappropriately and make the drawing seem unrealistic. The best way to learn how to use emphasis is to do it yourself, to learn from experience, to draw, and if your emphasis is placed incorrectly, you will learn from that mistake. I will say the areas that I use emphasis are areas like highlights, as I did on this apple earlier, areas where two objects are close to each other, make it darker, and areas where you use emphasis in your quality of line, you will later reinforce with your shading when you go back and add to the drawing with your wooden pencil or what have you. But it's amazing the realism you can accomplish just by using quality of line, and it's a good exercise to use quality of line to create as much realism as you can, even without the support of shading, which, I mean, shading covers a lot of mistakes, believe me. It's time for me to produce a little drawing for you all to enjoy, and without having to listen to me talk, so I will kick this into double time or quadruple time and see what I can do. I just wanted to stop the fast motion here to point out a couple things about the emphasis of line that I'm using in this picture. I've done almost no shading at this point. I think right here is this only patch where I've done something that might be considered shading. And all I'm using is emphasis of line to try and make this as realistic as possible. Everywhere that it's going to be in shade, it's going to, I'm sorry, I should clarify, the light source is coming this way, shining on the house in this direction. So I've taken the peak of the crown of the roof here and I've made this lighter. I'm going to say that's where the light is shining most intently. And here on the side of the house I've also lightened it. I wish I'd done that here on this, but I hadn't quite thought out my color or my lighting scheme at that point yet. Here on the porch everything is in shadow, but I'm only emphasizing the most important things: the door, the porch railing that's going to be in front. The others are emphasized, but they're starting to fade into the background. They wouldn't be what the viewer most clearly sees. Perhaps I'll go back and darken this window. I'll have to think about that. The inset panels on this door are there. They're, I'd say, about half the emphasis of the frame of the door, but they're there. And they would be clearly defined by the lighting here. So I just wanted to point that out, as I'm going to add some more to the deck here. I'm going to emphasize the very peak of the lines on the rail, the very top of the railing, but I'm going to emphasize everything that's underneath the deck, that's in the shade, and will be clearly defined by the well-lit background that will be behind the deck. Maybe it's a hillside, maybe it's a tree, but they would stand out rather starkly because they're in the shade. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys, something to think about as you're watching this drawing progress. Alright, that's as far as I think I'll take this drawing today. I hope you've learned something about emphasis of line, quality of line, and I think this drawing also shows another very important rule of drawing, which is when you think it can't get any better, or when you think you've ruined your drawing and there's no returning it, just keep drawing. I could still make this picture look better. There's still things I could add to it. I won't for the sake of space and time, but on almost all drawings, if you think you can't possibly make it any better, or if you've ruined it and hey, now you can't make it any worse, just keep drawing. See what comes out. You might be surprised. Thank you for watching. Once again, if you're interested in more of my artwork, you can check out my website, elihansenart.com, and check out the gallery there. I've also got some interesting blog posts if you like to read more than watch videos, and I will see you in the next video.